All right, Orange Bloods live community. Let's talk a little recruiting. It is the recruiting hour on a Wednesday. I'm Chad Hastings. That guy right there is Jason Sukamel, proud track and field father that's got an event to check out today, but he's going to give you a little recruiting update before then. So he's working hard. Jeff Ketchum unable to join us today. He's got a little something going on his in his part of the world. He'll be back on the recruiting hour coming up on the next show next Monday when we'll have the next recruiting hour, and Ketch will be back for House Divided and all the other stuff. Modcast tomorrow as well on a Thursday. So we'll have all of that. And just real quick before we get into this, we do want to send thoughts and prayers and just, I don't know, I guess everybody wearing red like me today, it'll turn into not Valentine's Day, but thinking of Kansas City today, the shooting at the end of the parade celebrating the Chiefs Super Bowl, where as we're recording this, I'm reading one person has been reported dead. I haven't seen any other descriptions outside of that. There are like 10, I believe, that are injured, have been rushed to hospitals. So we're thinking of all those folks today as the sports world has one of those stories that you don't want to talk about, but that you do have to talk about. So we'll keep our eyes obviously peeled on that story. Jason, I appreciate your time today. For those that don't know, if you go to orangebloods.com, you can find a lot of great articles throughout the week. And one of them is Jason's 3-2-1 article. This week, Jason, you dug into a couple things that I thought would be really interesting for this show. And the first was Kenny Baker. A lot of questions at the beginning about what's this guy going to be like? Everybody looked at that resume and thought, well, is this the guy you want out on the recruiting trail trying to lock down those defensive linemen? So let's start with Kenny Baker and kind of what you've been able to find out in the early going about what he's like as a recruiter.
Yeah, we're still, like you said, early going. I mean, it's dead period right now, so there's not much he can do right now until basically March rolls around. But the early returns, Chad, have been pretty good. You know, I talked, it was last week, I guess, a 2025 defensive lineman, Xavier Okponu, and Kenny Baker went and visited him at his school. And Xavier was like, dude, I loved him. Like, his energy was incredible. You know, Texas is still high on my list because of just that one meeting with Kenny Baker. He said Kenny Baker literally has been texting him every single day. So look, at the guy's putting in the work, right? I mean, it's dead period. And he goes, yeah, Coach Baker was like, back in Miami, moving his stuff to Texas, but he's still checking with me every day. I'm like, all right, the dude's, he's not lazy for sure. He's putting the effort. And then this week I talked to Melvin Hills, who is a Texas signee, defensive lineman who signed in December. Well, when Bo Davis left, I talked to Melvin the day that it came out, and he didn't really want it blasted all over social media or even on Orange Bloods. But he's like, hey, dude, between you and me, he goes, yeah, I might ask out of my letter of intent. Okay. He was, and we saw DeAndre Robinson, another Texas defensive tackle signee, do the same thing. He ended up signing with Florida. Well, Melvin Hills was kind of thinking the same thing. Melvin doesn't enroll till the summer, though. So he had a bit of time. He said, I'm going to talk to my family, give it a couple weeks, but I might ask out of my letter of intent. I kind of subtly put it out there, just said, hey, we'll be watching this, but I didn't blast it because he asked me not to. Well, I talked to Melvin this week. And Coach Baker went and visited him, I guess, before the dead period kicked in, so a couple weeks ago. And he said, man, it was a great meeting. He said the same thing. He said, dude, the dude is high energy, just a good, solid person. And Melvin said, you know what, I feel good about my Texas commitment after meeting Coach Baker. He's looking forward to coming up maybe for the spring game, spending more time with Coach Baker. But he said, I'm back locked in with Texas, and I'm excited about my future under Coach Baker. So, it's early, Chad. He's, we'll see what happens over the long haul, but the early returns have been pretty good and overwhelmingly positive for Kenny Baker.
So as you mentioned, Hills is a guy that is an out-of-state guy from Louisiana. I'd be interested in that if I'm a Texas fan we talked about the whole recruiting world nowadays where when something changes on a coaching staff, watch those out-of-state guys and what they do. So as you look at a guy like Melvin Hills, how much of obviously it is the early barometer that you've got, but in terms of a talent level, I saw Melvin Hills listed as a 3-star guy.
He's a 3-star guy, right? Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of a guy like that, maybe not the absolute, most elite athlete, most elitely ranked guy, if elitely, is that a word? Most elitely ranked guy that he could be at that moment. But would you say that's also a guy that had Texas lost him immediately lost his commitment because of this. It's a big disappointment.
I think so, especially in the wake of the DeAndre Robinson. I hate to even call it a flip because it's not like I guess technically he did dump Texas, but he decommitted and then wound up signing with Florida, or got out of his letter of intent at Texas and then signed with Florida. So, it's hey, anytime you lose, and DeAndre Robinson's incredibly talented, but you lose him, if Texas then would have lost Melvin Hills, that would have been a pretty big punch to the gut. So, I think keeping Melvin, and you're right, he's not Colin Simmons. He's not a 5-star guy. I get it. Right. But just in terms of numbers, Texas needs to restock that interior defensive line. Yeah, I think losing Melvin would have been a blow for Texas. So, I think that's a nice win and a nice feather in the cap for Coach Baker to keep Melvin in the fold.
Yeah, and great news too. You were talking about what is sort of allowed right now. Yes, it's a dead period, but Jason, you are the parent of what, one teenager, 2 teenagers right now?
Dude, brother, I got 3 teenagers and 1 12-year-old. So I'm almost at 4 teenagers. Yeah.
Okay. So more better than anybody, multiple teenagers here. The ability of that coach to connect with the kid on this level.
Yeah.
Because if you can't connect with them inside this thing, you're gonna lose them. It's not gonna matter. So that's good early news, that for a kid to tell you, yeah, he's hitting me up all the time.
Yep.
For a
Those
kid,
kids don't want phone calls either. They want text messages or
Right.
DMs on Twitter, Snapchats, whatever. I mean, hell, I call my own daughter, and sometimes I'm like, "Who the heck taught you how to answer a phone?" I mean, come on, we got to work on this. So you're right. These kids, it's all about interacting through the phone, but not necessarily phone calls. It's more like social media or text messages, things like that. And
Yeah,
Coach Baker's seems to be doing a pretty good job with that.
Yeah, half the time my daughter answers the phone like she's dead asleep. I'm like, can you just answer the phone? What is wrong with it? It's like is that a distress call?
You got to say hello when you answer the phone? I mean,
what are you doing? So that's some good news, I think, if you're a Texas fan, that Kenny Baker's not necessarily hit the ground running in recruiting in terms of the face-to-face, but he's hit the ground running in some of those key areas in terms of technology and everything. And again, check out the full 321 article at orangebloods.com for all kinds of more breakdown on what Kenny Baker's got going on. Also, Jason, especially now since Ketch is not on the show, and I love a good name, let's hit 2 of them. Let's hit Taz first, and we'll get to Booby. But Taz Williams, a talented receiver out of Red Oak. My first question to you is this: when did Red Oak get on your radar as a school? Because I'm a Waxahachie guy, and Red Oak was always just that little country town right up the road. But now they're in a 5A district, for people that don't know. So for you old schoolers, a 4A that's now up to that 5A status. And they're in a district, by the way, Jason, check this geography. They're in a district with Lufkin and Highland Park.
Wow. Just some road trips. Yeah.
If you know that geography, that's a long way. So when did Red Oak hit your brain where you had to pay attention to it?
Honestly, like a couple of years ago. It's very recent, but they've been churning out a lot of talent. I mean, Texas has recruited there heavily. They've landed a kid there. They're after Taz. They're after a defensive lineman from Red Oak. So Cam Morgan is his name. So, Red Oak it's kind of exploded, kind of like, schools like Lovejoy up there in that kind of general area. I mean, some of those schools have really started to produce high-end talent, and Red Oak's certainly one of them. But it's pretty new to my radar, if I'm being honest, in terms of
it's really
Texas actually recruiting that school.
Yeah. As you head up 35, we used to just tell people, okay, you're going to go through Waxahachie, and then it'll be Lancaster, DeSoto area. But then before you get there, now it's Waxahachie, Red Oak.
Red Oak. I stayed in Red Oak, Chad. I was up in DeSoto last week for the Pylon 7-on-7 tournament, and technically my hotel was in Red Oak. I was like, I don't think I've ever truly known that I was in Red Oak until last weekend. I stayed in Red Oak. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, the Red Oak Hawks. You got to pay attention. Okay, so
good mom and pop barbecue is awesome. Yeah. So.
Hey, there's some good food up there. There's no doubt. All right, so I'm seeing 6 foot 180 and a 4-star level receiver. How high would you have him ranked in your mind now? How high do you think he will be ranked? This is also to clarify. He is class of 25, right? He's the next cycle.
Right.
Okay.
And Rivals has him rated, I think, higher than everybody else. We have him in, I don't do the rankings, but he's just outside of the Rivals 100, if memory serves. I think Taz, he's coming off a little bit of an injury. He didn't participate in the 7-on-7. He actually moved down to Texas from Pennsylvania in large part because he and his family wanted to get him down to Texas and kind of see what he's made of on the football field. And he's held up really well. He's ranked number 115 in the Rivals 250 as I pull him up. So,
Okay.
Very good player. He's got a lot of options. All the big boys have offered him. That tells you something. The Ohio States of the world have offered him. Texas, interestingly, was one of the later schools to offer him. The previous wide receiver coach, Brendan Marion, didn't offer him. And I'm looking, I was like, hey, man, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Florida, everybody's offered this dude, but Texas never did. Well, Chris Jackson comes in and he reaches out to Taz. This is about a year ago and says, hey, I want to see you in person. And, if I like what I see, you'll get that offer from Texas. Well, he goes to visit him in person. I think it was in March. And literally later that night, he called him and offered him. So he clearly liked what he saw. But really good player. I mean, it's a tough year. This is such a deep receiver crop in the state of Texas in that cycle. But he's in that top 5, 6, 7 of them. And there's no shame in being 5th, 6th, or 7th. That still might put you top 25-ish in the state. And I'll say this about Taz, man. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, and I'll say the same thing about Boobie Feaster. Boobie's only a freshman in high school. I've got teenagers. You've got teenagers. Great kid, dude. Taz he's a phenomenal player. But the longer I do this, Chad, the older I get, I find myself more appreciating when I interact with a kid. That's a quality kid right there. It's a guy I like to root for. So, Taz, man, really good player, really good kid. And he really likes Texas, too. I mean, I think Texas, if they really push there, and we'll see what happens. Like I said, it's a deep year in states. They're recruiting some out-of-state guys, too. We'll see what happens in terms of how hard they push. I think they will right now. He's trying to set up an official visit to Texas. He was working on that literally on Saturday. When I was talking to him, he had texted Coach Jackson, said, hey, I'd like to set up an official visit to Texas. So if Texas brings him in for an official, if Texas pushes, I think Texas has a really good shot to land Taz Williams.
So when you're talking official visits with a guy like this, are we thinking that's probably June, or do guys do the officials at all, like spring game weekend, or do it's too busy?
Yeah, they can start doing them in April, I believe it is, but mostly Texas only does them in June. You'll see a couple schools here and there doing them like April, and I think there's maybe even a week in May. I don't have the calendar pulled up in front of me, but Texas is predominantly in June, and then of course they'll do a couple late in the process, maybe December. But yeah, it would be almost certainly a June official visit for Taz, assuming he sets one up with Texas.
On the Taz Williams list, I'm seeing Texas A&M, Ohio State, Michigan. Is he the guy I was reading about that has 50 different offers? Is that Taz, or is that somebody else?
We've got him with 44, but hey, we're probably missing a couple in there. 44. So he might be about 50.
I was way off. Only 44.
Yeah, you're rounding up a little bit. Yeah, only 44.
Oh, my God.
It's Alabama, it's Arizona, it's Auburn, Colorado, Florida State, Georgia. I mean, he's got all the big boys. I mean, so Notre Dame, Ohio State. So interestingly, I don't know if Oklahoma's offered him. We don't have that one listed. So it was interesting to me when it took Texas so long to offer him, and I was wondering if that might put Texas behind the 8 ball. But I asked Taz that this week when I saw him on Saturday, and he goes, no, man, I kind of appreciate it, and I can respect that they wanted to do their homework and see me in person. And he really likes Chris Jackson in terms of just kind of his no-nonsense a way of, recruiting him. He's very honest, he said. Coach Jackson played the position at the highest level. He's coached it at the highest level. So when he speaks, that means something to me. So, again, I think Texas has a really good shot with Taz.
So that's Taz Williams, receiver out of Red Oak. And you mentioned being in DeSoto, checking out an event. And I know that is where you ran into Boobie Feaster. Yep. And by the way, what's the first name? Ethan?
Ethan. Yeah, Ethan.
Does anybody call him Ethan? Is it his mom maybe, or does anybody call him that?
I don't know. Not that I've heard. I asked him the first time I talked to him. I said, dude, do you prefer Ethan or Boobie? Do you care? And he goes, I prefer Boobie. I go, all right, dude, Boobie it is. Let's go with it. So, yeah. When I was out at 7-on-7, I heard Boobie. I didn't hear Ethan once. So
no, it's a great name. And not that Ethan Feaster is not a good name, but Boobie Feaster is wonderful. So in addition to that name, though, for people that are just maybe getting into this discussion, DeSoto rings a bell with, I know a lot of people that love recruiting to know how big a program that is. Jonte Cook and Wisner and some of these guys that are Texas has just recently gotten. How good are we talking about? I know he's only a freshman. When you're projecting this guy to try to fit into that name, how good do you think he could be?
I think he, again, you're right. He's a freshman. We'll see how he develops over the next couple of years. But, he's a 5-star talent right now. He's on that path. He's going to be a top 25, 30 guy in the country. He may be in the top 10. We'll see how things kind of shake out. But, listen, we talked about Taz having what was it, 44 offers? I already forgot. Booby's got about 40, and he's a freshman, dude. He was played 1 year of varsity football. So this is a guy in middle school that had like 30 offers, right? So Texas obviously being one of those offers. The thing about Booby, I show up, or I was already at the 7-on-7 deal. He shows up. It's rainy. It's miserable. It's cold. It just sucked, if I'm being honest. But he showed up. He had a Texas backpack on. I'm like, Booby, what's up? He and I were texting. He goes, yeah, I'm here. So I went and found him. And I go, dude, what's up? Texas backpack. I go, what should I think of that? And he goes, hey, if you think it's a sign, then I guess it's a sign. I'm like, all right. So, it's super early. I did predict in my 3-2-1. And I was like, dude, I know this is ridiculous. It's a freshman. But I was like, I think Texas is going to eventually land Booby Feaster after talking to him. And he loves UT. He loves Chris Jackson. I mean, this is going to be just an all-out brawl. Every school in the country is going to be involved there. And, Texas is going to have to earn it. But, he's a tremendous talent as a freshman. He's up to, he told me, 6'2", 180, ultra productive, even as a freshman in a program like DeSoto. Do you know how good you have to be to start at DeSoto as a true freshman?
Oh, God.
Even just make the team.
Yeah.
Right? So, he put up good numbers as a freshman, very well coached. He works out with a trainer up there, D-Rob, who, helps him with his footwork and stuff. So another really good kid too. I think he's intelligent. He picks things up quickly, but, just tremendous prospect, man. That guy's ceiling is, as high as you want to put it. I won't argue with you.
Gotcha. Interesting. Yeah. It's everybody knows that feeling of being 14 or 15 and you got 40 offers, right? I mean, that's,
I think about that, dude, as I've got a daughter's in 7th grade. I'm fixing to go watch her compete in track. Yeah. I've got a daughter who's a sophomore. So she's a year older than Booby. And I'm like, I can't imagine my daughter a year ago having the options he has, right? The pressure, being under the microscope. He handles himself like a seasoned veteran, dude. Just a really impressive kid. I mean, obviously as a player, but the way he handles himself at such a young age, I'm like, dude, that guy's he's gonna be a rock star on and off the field, if he keeps on the current path.
No doubt. My daughter's gotten envelopes come to the house with a logo on it and her name, but I bet you what Booby gets is a little thicker. I bet you there's a little more information than what they're sending to my kid. That is impressive stuff. Speaking of impressive, Jason, before we wrap up, I wanted you to talk a little more about, you were talking about the communication skills of these kids. One of the guys that stood out to me, you were talking about a guy named Zane Rowe.
Yeah.
Big tight end. Remind me where he's going. He's another freshman. Remind me where he is.
Zane Rowe is. I always get the school mixed up.
That's my bad. I forgot.
No. Because I always know it's my fault. I should know this, but I don't want to say the wrong one. He is at Denton Geyer.
Denton Geyer. Okay.
Which one it is? But it's Geyer. Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad we clarified. I was about to say DeSoto, and it didn't feel right to me.
No. Yeah, he's one of the. I know he's one of the Denton schools, but wait a second, he's Geyer. Yeah, so I want to make sure. I got
maybe
right.
the D, the word with a D there was sticking in my head. So, but I was reading some of those quotes, and then I had to stop and go, wait a minute. This is a freshman in high school that is communicating with you on that level. Just talk a little bit about that. And were you also, I guess, A, does it surprise you a little, but then B, how telling is it when he's going through that level of detail about the communication with Texas?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, dude, because it hit me after I wrote my 3-2-1 that the guys that I wrote on, including Melvin Hills, but the 3 guys that I wrote on, the underclassmen, are all just amazing kids, dude. And I was like, wow, I was really fortunate to interview all those three of those guys. But yeah, Zane, it's, obviously I interviewed him last weekend. I actually interviewed him the first time last summer. There was a Texas recruiting event. He comes in and he walks up. It's me and some other media members. So this is before his freshman year even starts. And he walks up to us, introduces himself, shakes our hands, looks us in the eyes, and gives just a pro interview, dude. I mean, this kid, I was like, whoa, this kid's incredible. And he himself, Zane told me he's got a ton of offers. He's got 24 scholarship offers as a freshman, including, if I look at the list, Georgia, Miami, Nebraska, Oregon, Texas A&M. So he's got a ton of big ones already too. Yeah. He's a really good basketball player. He's a really good baseball player. Obviously a tremendous football player. He can play defensive end. He can play tight end. But yeah, super impressive guy. Obviously, I mean, just physically, you see him walk up, you're like, okay, that's a dude. Like, in fact, I was at the 7-on-7 tournament, and he had his head all covered up because it was cold and rainy. He had almost like a ski mask type thing on. And I'm like, who is that dude? From a distance, I'm like, who is that? That guy looks like something. And somebody I'm with was like, "Oh, that's Zane Rowe." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense." So, I mean, he's a guy that just catches your eye from a distance as a true freshman. And then you're like, "Oh, crap, that guy's a freshman. Imagine what he's going to be like 3 or 4 years from now."
Yeah.
And he's got the smarts, the character to go with it. So another guy that's going to be, just a top national recruit. He already is. But as we go through this, and he told me, he said, "Hey, I'm very open." And I believe him. He said, "I'm open." But he said, Texas is kind of in that top 5, top 3 conversation for me if I was to have that kind of list right now. So he loves UT, loves the coaching staff there, loves Jeff Banks. He talks to Jeff Banks regularly, a couple times a week, communicates with him. So another guy, it's super early, but another guy that Texas has a really good shot at as they kind of work through this.
Yeah, big programs. No, you find one of those badass tight ends, it could change your life. Just ask Taylor Swift. All right. Before we get out of here, Jason, we got a good chat question in from somebody wanting to go to the class of 26.
Yes.
And any thoughts on the new offer to the 26 quarterback from Tennessee?
I'm glad Jeff mentioned it because I wanted to mention it myself on the way out. I am not familiar with the guy, honestly. He's a top national prospect. Texas just offered him like literally an hour or so ago. I haven't even had a chance to go through. I added his offer to his profile. I haven't had a chance to go through. I want to go through and watch his huddle and stuff. But he's got offers from all of the big boys in college football already. So, and I think it's really interesting for Texas. I guess my thoughts are that Texas really doesn't offer quarterbacks pretty early. I mean, this is kind of unique for UT to go through and offer a quarterbacks super early. Jared Curtis, he's out of Nashville. He's out of, I think it's like Nashville Christian Academy or something like that. But it's pretty rare for Texas to offer a quarterback that early. I mean, they just, they don't do it. I mean, KJ Lacey, they offered pretty early, but Texas is extremely selective. I don't want to say notoriously because that has a bad connotation, but most quarterbacks know, hey, when you get an offer from Texas, that really means something because they're super selective. They don't do like a lot of schools and just hand out 20 quarterback offers. They sometimes hand out 1 per cycle, maybe 2, maybe 3. So for them to hand out an offer, Jared Curtis, he's number 40 in the nation, ranked as a 4-star guy right now, but he's already got, I'm looking at 27 offers: Alabama, Auburn, Colorado, Florida State, Georgia, LSU, Michigan, Ole Miss. I mean, wow. Notre Dame, Ohio State, Penn State, goes on and on, Texas A&M. So this is a guy that Texas clearly likes, everybody likes. I think the staff probably said, you know what, we probably better get in on this one before we fall behind some of these other schools. Yeah. But no, I'm going to have to, give me a bit of time, Jeff, and I will reach out to Jared see what his thoughts are on the offer. And I'm going to watch the guys huddle, obviously, before I kind of speak too much on him, but I'm sure I'll be impressed based on his offer list. So.
And just in case you thought we were only going to talk about crazy names, we finished with Jared Curtis. See, there you go. We keep it all nice and balanced. That is Jason Sukumel. All right, Jason, go be a proud dad. Get after that track and field event. Let's not get thrown out for, trying to cuss out an official or anything. Best of luck to everybody that's involved.
I told my daughter, I texted her, I said, hey, she's pretty nervous. She's 7th grade girls track, guys. This is a big deal, right? And she's pretty nervous. And I texted her and I said, hey, honey, I said, just have fun. Enjoy the moment. I love you. You're going to be great. I said, don't worry about how you place. And I think she'll do pretty well. She's actually pretty fast, but I was like, don't worry about how you place. Just have fun and enjoy the moment. Thanks, Dad. I love you. And I go, oh, by the way, if you don't finish first, you're grounded.
There you go. This is the one that you beat in a race the other day.
Yes, it is. And someone's like, show me the video or it didn't happen. I'm like, I'm too embarrassed to show anybody that video. I did beat her in about a 40-yard sprint, but it wasn't by much. And Chad, it wasn't pretty, but we'll see how she does in her first 7th grade track meet. She's got the 100-meter dash, the 4x2, and the long jump. So we'll see.
There you go. The next Flojo is on the way.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it, man.
But
that is Jason Sukumel, of course, one of the great guys you get at orangebloods.com. Get on over there. I'll throw a QR code up for you so you can check it out. If you've not gotten to Orange Bloods, gotten signed up, gotten somebody, maybe this is the Valentine's present. Ladies, if you're out there, maybe you're hearing me in the background and you're like, why does he always watch this crap? Why is he always check? Get him an orangebloods.com membership. He'll get on that message board. He'll leave you alone. He'll just get lost in the message board madness, and you'll get some quiet time if you need it. It'd be fantastic. Good gift idea. There's your QR code. The 321 article is there from Jason. A lot of good recruiting stuff there this week. Catch always gets you 10 thoughts from the weekend on Sundays, on Sunday evenings, on over the weekends. You're going to get also on Sunday, the Sunday pulpit article with Anwar. You get a lot of great breakdown from Alex Dunlap and others at orangebloods.com as well. Zach has got the great stuff about baseball. Baseball season's about to fire up. There's a lot going on over at orangebloods.com. So check that out. And we do appreciate Jason's time. Also appreciate you guys in the chat today. Thank you for jumping in. There's Cody. There's another guy. Cody Carpentier. Oh, you've heard from Cody. You're going to hear from him some more too. Roster watch and all the great stuff he does. Cody, Taz and Booby. Classic Looney Tunes meets Friday Night Lights. Cody, that's the best part. That's the best version. Not that I don't love an Eddie Smith or a Jimmy Moore or, basic names can be cool. When you go into Taz Williams and Booby Feaster, oh my God, that's fantastic. What Texas fan doesn't want to hear Craig Way shout out Taz Williams and Booby Feaster in a few years? That's why we give you all these great updates. Hope those kids are doing well. Hope they make the decision that's right for them. And still can't believe that Red Oak is as big a deal as it is. By the way, once again on the geography, if you know where Red Oak is on 35, they're in a district with Highland Park and Lufkin. Wow. Lufkin and Red Oak are in the same district? I'm not quite understanding that one. All right. And then a couple other quick chats for you. Sukamel sounding positive today. Gotta like it. Text guy too. There you go. Our man Harish jumped in earlier. Love hearing the positive news on Baker. Harish, it is great news. If you're a Texas fan, the fact that he's on a communication level that's impressing a guy like Melvin Hills, I think that is good news. I would agree with that. If I'm a Texas fan, I'd like to hear it because it's not about, we say this all the time sometimes to the fans, that if you're some 58-year-old fan or 62-year-old fan or even a 29-year-old fan, the way these kids communicate is not like the rest of us do, but these coaches have to dial into that. Seems like Kenny Baker has done that. And we did get the thoughts on the quarterback prospect there, Jared Curtis. So thank you to Jeff for throwing that question in. All right. I think that is just about going to wrap us up here on the recruiting hour. Remember, we get you the recruiting hour on Mondays and Wednesdays, Tuesdays and Thursdays in that 4 o'clock slot, that afternoon, evening slot. We get you the Modcast. So Catch will be back on the Modcast tomorrow. And remember, Thursday is also War Room Day at orangebloods.com. That's another thing I didn't mention earlier, in addition to the crazy cool message board and all that stuff. Thursday nights, all the guys come together and they just take all their little pieces of news, nuggets, info. Here's what I'm hearing on this. Here's what I'm hearing on that. Here's what I'm hearing. Last week, interesting stuff that Ketch got from a source about Arch Manning, and Anwar got some interesting stuff about Sark and the upcoming season, and just a lot of little nuggets coming together. That's a Thursday night release on orangebloods.com. So definitely check that out. By the way, if you are an Outsiders fan on Orange Bloods Live, no outsiders tonight because we're all trying to stay married or stay in relationships. Between the full Outsiders group and our guest that was scheduled to be Shane Leckler tonight, the legendary Aggie and NFL punter, everybody's got somebody they'd like to continue to speak to tomorrow. So we're going to have no outsiders tonight. Enjoy Valentine's Day. Next Wednesday, Shane Leckler is going to join the Outsiders. Next Thursday, Justin Simmons, for you Longhorn baseball fans, is going to join us. Tomorrow night on the Outsiders, Bo Edge has to drink an entire Four Loko during the show because he couldn't pick NFL games better than the rest of us. So there's your update. All right. There it is. And yes, Jeff, it's fair. It's fair. It's the recruiting half hour today. See what you're doing there. It's an hour we set aside, but we may not take the whole hour, but that's fair. If we called it recruiting hour, maybe it doesn't sound as good. All right, that will wrap it up for the show today. Before we get out of here, let me hit you with a little bit of specs. If you're looking to get stocked up, maybe your Super Bowl party went really, really, really well, and you're just out of stuff. Well, Lisa and the Rabbit and the folks at Specs can help you out.
No matter what you're needing, Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers, to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
Every time I try to read the packaging now on those little strawberry cookies, I got to go find those at Specs. Get to your local Specs location. They will help you out. Thanks to Specs for being a great partner of Orange Bloods Live. And also one more time before I get out of here, just want to send all the best to Kansas City. Cannot believe that happened today at the parade for the Chiefs. One person dead. I have not seen any details on the age or gender of that person. Obviously horrific, no matter what that is, but I have not seen exactly the situation there. I saw a comment from a spokesperson at a children's hospital, but I don't know that necessarily means a child was hurt. It might just mean that they were trying to spread those folks out and get them to the nearest hospital as quickly as possible. So we're just going to hope for the best. But I'm reading there are folks in stable condition, maybe some folks in critical condition. And also, I've seen a video that I don't know how real it was, but supposedly there's a video out of Kansas City fans dispersing and getting away from this, leaving a parade like you normally would. And a couple of them literally tackle one of these shooters. They've detained two people as the shooters in this situation, and one of them literally gets tackled by a couple of Kansas City fans, and they held him until the cops got there and were able to get to him. So just a horrible situation today off of that parade. As I'm reading through the story, no one on the famous side of things was injured. The governor of the state was there along with his wife. They're okay. The Chiefs were already on their bus headed back to Arrowhead. So all of them apparently are all right. Unfortunately, just as the crowd was breaking up, apparently shots were fired. So we'll certainly keep our eyes on that story. But we also appreciate you being a part of our community here, and maybe we take your mind off of some of that stuff with a little recruiting talk now and again. Remember to like, subscribe, and to get notifications for Orange Bloods Live. Until Monday at 4 for the next recruiting hour, I'm Chad Hastings. Jeff Ketchum will be back next time, and this is Orange Bloods Live.